Mandevilla. What a fancy pizzazz name. Hi, I'm Mandevilla. Kiss my hand. I always recommend Mandevillas to people that are looking for like a low maintenance, sun-loving, bright patio flower. They originate from South America, Central America, so love hot, humid climates. Can you say sunbathes? I had two beautiful matching Mandevilla plants gifted to me when we moved into our new house, and unfortunately I couldn't bring them in for the video because they already are very attached to their trellis. I don't dare try and unwind them. That would be pretty rude. But I do have this little guy right here, currently not flowering, but it's been an indoor Mandevilla houseplant for, I don't know, maybe 5 years? Currently needs a little more height to climb, so I got stuff to do. Some common names for this plant are rock trumpet and Brazilian jasmine, sometimes Chilean jasmine. You may have heard those names in conversation with plant people. But it's the Latin that I do want to clarify with you because it gets a little weird. What else is new? Many people, like me, just call this plant Mandevillas. It's very general, very vague, because Mandevilla is actually the genus, which is much more broad and vague than the species. So not very specific. You'll also hear people ask, is this a Mandevilla or a Diplodania? Have you ever heard that? If you ask me, those two names are synonymous, okay? The genus and species for this specific plant and the ones I have outside would be Mandevilla sanderi. Sanderi is the species. And then synonymously, Diplodania sanderi. Get it? Some people claim that Diplodania and Mandevilla are different and that they have different growth habits. If you ask me, that might have been true at one time, but there are such a variety of species now, I don't think that that's even accurate anymore. Most of the Mandevilla genus will be climbing vines, okay? There are some that have sort of a mounding growth habit that you can trail down in hanging baskets, things like that, but most will be climbing. The info on your seed packets or the plants that you buy should always be relaying that information to you, okay? If it doesn't have that information, I don't even know if I would buy it. My specific feature plant, the Mandevilla sanderi or Diplodania sanderi, have a climbing vine habit, in case you haven't already guessed. To have a content Mandevilla, you need to plant it in a place that has at least 6 hours of sunlight per day, at least. Like I said, sunbathers, okay? They need direct sun. They also need well-draining soil. It's really important. They really like it if you mix in a bit of compost, but make sure that soil is still going to drain really well. If it's in a container, make sure that container has really good drainage holes. Those are really the two key things you want, okay? Lots of sun, lots of good drainage. Of course, you can grow this plant from seed, but I usually recommend stem cuttings because they're just so easy, and the germination period for the seeds is usually about a month. Depending on where you live, that might be a little too long to really get a really nice, happy, tropical climbing plant before the end of your season. I'm not going to do any demonstrations on stem cuttings. There's tons of instructional videos out there. You just have to look them up. If you do have any questions that you specifically want to ask me, just leave them in the comments below, okay? Let's get into the actual plant. Mandevilla root systems are tuberous. Okay, so that means that they do really well with drought spells, really matching that heat-loving aspect. However, overwatering or waterlogging the soil will easily rot those tuberous roots. So that's why the well-draining soil is key. The foliage varies between species, but usually the leaves are dark, glossy green, oval-shaped. Some are more elongated than others. Again, depends on the species. If you're in a dry climate, it doesn't hurt to mist those leaves from time to time. They love it. It's just like a nice plant shoulder rub. They're like, ah, yes, thank you. This plant is actually in a subspecies group of the dogbane family, okay? And a lot of plants in the dogbane family have this milky sap. It's like a latex milky sap inside the stems. very sticky white stuff, and it's actually skin irritant. So most people recommend wearing gloves if you're pruning a mandevilla or cutting it back to bring it indoors. The whole plant is actually mildly toxic, so if you're one of those people that just like irresponsibly sticks plants in your mouth and you don't know what they are, don't do this one, and maybe make better life choices. The flowers, before they bloom, are like these tight little cocoon vessels. Looks like it's kissing the air. When they bloom, they always have 5 petals and are either pink, white, or red with these yellow throats. Many refer to them as trumpet-like. Get it? Rock trumpet? See how I'm not really putting it to my mouth because I don't want to get a stomachache? Some flowers are way more fragrant than other flowers. Again, depends on the species. This sanderi species, they don't smell very strong at all. And I'm not sure if this goes for all species, but with the sanderi species, the flowers are self-deadheading. So they'll just drop their blooms when they're toast. And also they will drop their blooms if they're too dry. So you can keep your eye on your plants, and if a lot of flowers are dropping and there hasn't been like a crazy hailstorm or anything like that, you can bet that they're wanting a little more water. When it comes to supporting mandevillas, I recommend you have a plant. Because it's a little crazy when you go out and buy a climbing vine plant, you think like, oh, that's cool. And then you come home and you're like, what am I going to do with this? They can climb up to like 20 feet. Get a trellis. Invest in a really beautiful one. If you don't want to put in the work, you can make your own. But you need a support system if you get a climbing vine mandevilla. If the front of your house is south-facing and you get a big trellis and you plant some mandevilla near it, woo! It'll be the talk of the neighborhood. The tropical house. I've listed some species recommendations below in the description. If you are looking for specific varieties, there's some small spreading kind of container ones, 3 to 6 feet instead of 20 feet, if that's a little intimidating for you. There's some with bigger white blooms that are more fragrant, and there's some that are a little bit smaller but beautiful red and pink blossoms. There are many ways to go. I have one last thing to say, and it's almost like a warning. So now that you've discovered how tall mandevillas can really get, you might go get one and think, oh yeah, I have this huge, beautiful blue planter. I'm gonna pop it in there and just let it grow. It'll have all the space it needs and I never have to repot it. Don't do that. If you put a mandevilla plant in a massive pot, and this goes for a lot of species, but specifically mandevillas, people want them for their climbing vines and more so all the profuse flowers that they produce. If you put that plant in a huge pot with a lot of soil, first of all, the drainage might not be up to its standard. Second of all, what's going to happen is the plant is going to focus a lot more on rooting. Okay, think about the roots seeing all this space, feeling all this space. Ooh, might want to spread out. Okay, and then you're going to end up with a plant that is really focusing on root growth, because that's what you're giving it, a lot of space for its roots, and you're going to get less flower production. You have to sort of repot as you go, or leave it in a small pot. They don't mind being in smaller containers. In my opinion, it's a better way to go. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more videos like this. They come out every Friday. Bye!